Welcome to Data Forward, the podcast that keeps you ahead in the fast-evolving world of enterprise AI and data management. We bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and the latest trends to help you stay on top. Ready to shape the future of data? Let's Data Forward.
Welcome to yet another episode of Data Forward. Today, I'm extremely excited to introduce our guest, Prakul Sharma. He is a partner at Deloitte. He leads a significant practice of data and AI and is one of the emerging leaders in the data and AI practice at Deloitte. And it's my pleasure to have him here on Data Forward. When we started Data Forward, one of the goals that we had was to bring all the data leaders to share their thoughts, opinions, and what they're seeing in the market. So Prakul, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. It's very nice to be here and looking forward to having the conversation, sharing what we are seeing in the market on the ground. And hopefully, the audience can carry away a few insights from that.
Yeah. The first thing which I think everybody has, top of mind is what's happening in the world of AI.
Yep.
But you've also had a very, very long history in, working on data projects, from some of the most complicated ones to some of the not so complicated ones. But how is AI today shaping the entire data landscape?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a two-way relationship. I think without the right data, the AI you can't trust, right? And from an AI perspective, we are seeing a lot of impact in terms of how we actually see data, how do we manage data, how do we govern data, how do we utilize data. So it's a symbiotic relationship that we are seeing. That's one of the reasons we have a practice that's combined AI and data, and most of our experts in that area are able to span across both of these things. Now, to your specific question, how is AI impacting data? Well, let me kind of just, pull the thread on it and kind of discuss some of the top trends in AI that we are seeing right now, and then I'll kind of draw to how that's impacting the data landscape. So I think everybody knows the generative AI wave that happened over the last 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our clients actually worked and did proof points, pilots. Some scaled it to the next level. We were able to understand what are the issues, problems that they face as they're expanding. That generative AI wave actually led to new innovations. One thing that I've felt was a critical development was this agentification. That actually allows now us to take the insights that these models are able to generate, the planning they can do, and link it with the actions. And that has opened a wide variety of use cases, including transforming some of the way we look at data. Now, kind of linking it back on the data side, what we are seeing how AI is impacting is, number one, now because this whole trends that have happened in generative AI that have expanded the scope of data from structured to unstructured. So what we are seeing a lot of clients now do is a request to manage the entire landscape of the data. So expanding to a fabric that contains structured, unstructured data, and that actually then allows you to manage this end to end. Now, we're also seeing AI getting embedded into how we do everything related to data, whether that is the movement of the data from one place to the other, governing the data, utilizing the data. So, for example, in Deloitte ourselves, we have capabilities where we could map data and generate ETL codes on different platforms very easily. So that's augmenting and speeding up the way we do data integration. We have capabilities to generate metadata, generate quality rules by itself, and some of those things we do in partnership with you and the product that you have brought in. And then ultimately also how we actually deliver data and so that our clients can monetize. So those are some of the broader, bigger trends, but love to hear, if you want to probe into something specific.
Yeah, I mean, we are also seeing this very, very similarly. One of the things, the hypothesis that we are working with is that, data and AI will be managed together.
Yes.
I think, the role of the CDO or the person responsible for data has expanded.
Yes.
I think, they will have to not just service the BI engineers and the data scientists.
Yes.
But they'll also have to potentially serve the application developers who will be looking for high quality data.
Okay.
And they will be looking for access to not just one, but a plethora of models for use case specific, purpose built, monetization use cases or efficiency use cases. And so that clearly has become, one of the top trends that at least, we see from our vantage point. But let me, some segment the conversation that we had, and can we talk a little bit about, your Fortune 500 or Global 2000 customers?
Yes.
And if you think the kind of challenges that they've faced in terms of data management in the last 10, 20 years, do you think AI is going to be a significant help in order for them to get finally in control of their data landscape?
Yeah. So let me kind of give you, because I've had firsthand experience in working with the Fortune 500 folks in terms of really understanding the data issues, trying to solve different pieces. And one of the biggest challenges that we have seen is the complexity of the technology landscape. See, when data management, if you go back 10 years, when people started quote unquote doing data governance management during or maybe before Dodd-Frank days, and that's where the whole governance concept kicked off. They started managing data at the right side of the quote unquote the architecture diagram, where you had data warehouses, you were delivering it to the reporting sites. A lot of controls, quality checks and balances were put in there. But as people started working, they realized that, hey, there are issues not on that side, but throughout the life cycle, as you move the data, including as you generate the data, somebody typing the data into an application, is it the right format? Is it done in the right way? To then moving the data, to then actually utilizing the data. So there were issues throughout. And then when you start to open this Pandora's box, you see, in order to really understand and control the data, you really need to see what's happening with the data. You need to have a common taxonomy about the data. We see problems where, a business line over here would call something in a different way, whereas when it goes to a function or a reporting application, they call it a different way. And then you're trying to tie these two things. So taxonomy was one major issue on how you describe the data end to end. Second was, do you get an insight into how the data is flowing? People took different approaches. Some did business functional lineage by talking to people and plotting flows. Others actually tried more innovative approaches where they, did lineage, re-engineering the flows. That ran into issues because of the plethora of technologies. So that visibility of the lineage of the data was critical. Now we are also seeing, as people are modernizing their infrastructure, a lot of that is also getting solved because the modernization is giving you a more a solution to then build lineage by design and others. And once that is done, then you are able to then see how do you overlay the controls, whether there are quality checks upfront towards the warehousing side, towards the reporting side. All of those things are now we are seeing emerging, and tools like Excel Data are able to provide us an easy and AI-enabled way to doing this lineage end to end. So that was kind of the little bit of how the landscape was happening, what challenges people were facing. Now, where AI is coming in is across all of these, whether you're discovering the lineage, smart mapping, how the data is flowing, or whether you are generating quality rules based on what is inside the data, as well as what is the business requirements. Whether you are kind of generating definitions of taxonomy and mapping those things, we are seeing AI utilized at all of those spots. And that's where I think a lift is happening in some of the works. We are seeing about 20 to 30% lift right now, which is at early stages. And it'll only increase. So hopefully I'm able to answer that.
No, I think it's a great answer. I want to just now refer back to what you just spoke of in terms of, data controls. They will become more and more stringent as days go along.
Yes.
And so in that process, I have a feeling that, in the past, data management was just not possible because, for all the reasons that you outlined, because there were too many pipelines, too many technologies, landscape which grew over a period of time.
Yes.
And everything was getting done only at the consumption layer as opposed to, where it was getting generated.
Yeah.
And so AI is certainly, an enabler and all of that. But if you were to sort of, plot this out for, let's say, the next 3 or 4 years, what is your kind of wish list in terms of, where data management should be?
Yeah.
What are things that you would like to see happen automatically?
Oh, that's a loaded question, and I'll try to again break it down. I think if you look at the life cycle of data management, that life cycle really talks about understanding of that data, understanding how the data is flowing, understanding how you can control the data, and I'm not saying just technical checkpoints which we've been doing forever, but how business rules can be easily converted into code that then can be managed. Like a simple example would be in banking, regulatory report, there are different considerations for those fields to be reported. Those are on regulators that also evolve, regulatory documents that also evolve. So how do you translate that into something that could be implemented, right? Those kind of things. And then really, uh, providing tools that can augment like stewards, data engineers, and others, and be the co-pilot assisting agents that will help these folks to really focus on the core piece of their work versus doing rudimentary work that they want. So with that, I think what I'd love to see in the products that are coming in the future is a way where AI is integrated into the experience of the entire life cycle, whether we are engineering something or whether we are providing stewardship services, and having an agent-assisted way of looking at all of these things, right? That, to me, will be a game changer in the future of the CDO and CDAOs. Yeah, those organizations would be much more leaner. They'll have more time for innovation and driving more productivity. And that, if you can enable through tools like Excel data, and that I think is on my wish list.
We are certainly seeing, very identical patterns that people are trying to figure out what is the right size of the workforce, what is the right set or skill set that we need. But there's like a very, very interesting combination of technology, of, domain experts,
Yes.
and people. Yes. And each of them are kind of feeding each other right now, making, each of these component or pressure groups equally more effective. The technology is being asked or forced to catch up with the technology evolution, which is, largely generative, but also the classical models, they've actually caught up and they're doing a phenomenal job, whether it's for univariate or multivariate anomaly detection, etc., for anti-money laundering, transaction monitoring, anti-terrorist activity monitoring. I think there's a lot that has
Absolutely
come through now. But do you see this, I know implicitly you and I were talking about financial services, but as a broad-based trend, across other industries, are you also seeing this trend, very, very pervasive?
Absolutely. I mean, one of my roles, while I serve clients in financial services, but I also lead the practice across all the sectors and the industry that we serve. And I do get an opportunity to talk to leaders in AI data across these clients. And just an example of, I was talking to a client. They are a distributor for liquor, large producer and distributor for liquor. In their data setup, right, they are going through this evolution. They were a little bit late to adopt the principles of standard data management and governance. But in a way, that is actually helping them because now they are able to not go back to the frameworks that were 10 years back, but start looking at it in a total different way where they're saying, hey, I want to do data management governance, but how do I embed that into the very fabric of how I do data, right? And their frameworks are different. Their approaches are different. They are thinking agentic by design. How do I actually embed agents into different pieces of this puzzle? And we are seeing a lot of that happen across the sectors. So I will not be surprised, like in the next year, 2 years, we have a lot of projects where people come to us and say, hey, you know what, I want to look at my governance framework, operating model, and others with this more new evolved thinking in mind. So I expect that. I'm already seeing that, and I think that's where it'll likely end up going.
Yes, almost like, and this is again one of the internal hypotheses. We wrote this paper internally 2 years back, shared it with, our board of directors, shareholders, everyone. And the thing, the first line in that was, data management. It is a moment of displacement for data management itself.
Yes.
And, ever since our thesis has become, AI first, agentic, inculcating, both classical models and generative models. I think, what you just mentioned is that as people are transforming or even thinking for the first time, it may actually be a great time to start or begin, or to even trash what you have in release.
Yeah. I would say, it's easier to do greenfield implementation than to fix the brownfield stuff. But I think there is enough promise in this that, our clients should start to look at it differently. We internally at Deloitte are starting to look at it differently in how we manage our own data, how we actually deliver our data, and how we deliver our services to the client. So I think it's about time, and this is a moment where there are people all across the spectrum, but I'm on the spectrum where I'm seeing the results in the technology, maybe not end to end, but in certain areas where if you combine it together, there is incremental benefit here.
And which is then your approach is technology first, human in the loop, and just increase productivity and efficiency.
Yes.
25% gains even at this technology state, which according to me is just infancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've applied this this whole thinking around new way of doing AI and data with agents and others in different settings. Like, for example, improving the developer productivity or SDLC lifecycle productivity. And the results are very interesting and amazing. I think it's only where I see what will make or break this is how do you actually drive these into the experience. So if you are a steward, how would you make my life easier versus me having now do it in one tool and then having agents over here and then one agent for one thing, one agent for other thing. So how do you actually drive that experience, right? Some of my colleagues in Deloitte actually work on that area. We have a specialized group that works on embedding AI experiences into these applications. So I think that experience part is also very important while the technology innovations are happening.
What is your own rate of thinking, and how is it evolving? Because I know that you are building a lot of products internally as well, alongside partners like us, but you also do a lot of first-hand development. What has your experience been in the last 12 months, and what kind of investments do you foresee you will have to continuously make in order to achieve your business goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak to what I can speak to. Sure. But I think generally, as consultants, I also feel I've done consulting all my life. I do feel we have to stay ahead of the game, 2 steps ahead of what is happening in the industry and what our clients are thinking just about agentic. We started working on agentic about 12 months back, and you and I talked over a coffee. So that way, I think we are making a lot of investments in what we expect is going to be happening 1 year from now, right? We do certainly see, the way we work changed drastically. The way our clients expect us to work changed drastically, and then the kind of solutions that our clients will need in the future. I'm also not, I would also say that, while we want to make all this transformation, we also see in a lot of clients there is a let's say, technical debt legacy that most clients have. Mainframes are still there, right? So how do you actually integrate these newer technology and experience into a brownfield setup and then incrementally make that evolution?
Sure.
Those are the type of assets, accelerators, tools that we are developing, whether those are frameworks in approaches, or whether those are, say, an agent to do A, B, or C things, right? So those are kind of the areas where we are investing. So those are the broader areas I would say that we are investing our time, effort, and energy.
Sure. One of the other topics that's, top of mind for us and many of our customers is that, as they go through, understanding or thinking about data management overall, what is the tech stack for data management?
Yes.
There's, somebody buys an MDM software, and then there's a data quality software.
Yeah.
And then there is an observability software, and there is, data testing.
Yes.
Do you foresee a world in which all of this is now finally going to come together?
Yeah.
Because that is, very, very, I have to give the disclaimer that, it is a very intentional question. And, just comment on our vision. But
Yes.
I would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah. I think I'll go back to that experience part that I was mentioning, because the adoption is going to be driven by these experiences. I was kind of interestingly tracking what is happening in this whole evolution, new agentic markets and everything, and I can give a data management lens to it. There's a lot of like small vertical solution coming. Everybody is building an agent for something. Last week I was talking to a startup that was doing some part of this whole data lifecycle, but only that part with an agentic, good innovation thinking. My challenge there is, our clients, when they choose software, they try to, hey, what is the simplified view for me to do? Does the tool have all the capabilities to me? If they need to implement 20 tools to get a data management capability, that's something they'll shy away from.
Sure.
So I do believe all of these need to converge into a platform approach. I also believe that that platform of the future will also have flexibility to embed things from outside into it. An example here could be, you have all the capabilities and functionalities, but you might not in lineage. I'll give you an example of lineage. When you try to trace the lineage out, it depends on what your underlying technology is, right? Until and unless you have plugins to do that. Now, in the future, those plugins could become intelligent agents that actually can do that whole thing. And your tools and capabilities that an organization has, if there's a lineage end to end, they should be able to plug in all sorts of these other smaller agents and provide that platform to the client, so that client doesn't have to go and buy 20 softwares, but they can come on with this more as a plug and play services, while the core of the framework is brought together by one, backbone.
So consistent experience with, lots of capabilities, but open-ended capabilities that make life simpler, not just for today,
Yes.
but, also for the future. Couple of last thoughts, cloud transformation. It's a big topic, continues to be, we've all seen decade-long journeys going on in the enterprise.
Yes.
Have you seen acceleration in that? Are you seeing, some second thoughts emerging because of cost considerations?
Yeah. I think I'm seeing a mix, right? I think, first of all, I would say that based on at least my viewpoint and vantage point, I think the future is hybrid, right? I love you to meet, my colleague who leads our practice. We call it the hybrid cloud practice, right? Because we believe that's where the world is going. Now, to your point, I do see some people, who have gone through the cloud journey, all of a sudden waking up and saying, oops, it's costing more than what was there. But that also is in the nature of how they did the implementation. They just lift and shift and just expected things to just be kind of more cheaper.
Sure.
That's where I think we are also consulting with a lot of these clients to say, hey, what are the levers that went right or wrong in those migrations, so that you can still, whether layer of FinOps or whether, certain rationalizations that are there that you can bring together and make this a more, effective proposition for you. But in summary, I would say this is going to be a hybrid setup. And from a data manager perspective, we have to look to manage a hybrid landscape in the future.
Sure. I think it's very similar what we are seeing. I think there's also the legacy that continues to exist and the applications which will refuse to move to the cloud because of regulatory reasons and whatnot. But the last parts, and because data forward is one of the things where a lot of data leaders come and get advice. What is, if somebody is taking on the role of a CDO,
Yes.
what is your, I would say, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for them?
I think number one, I think this is an opportunity. If you are getting onto a role where you can influence the AI and data agenda for a company or a firm, I absolutely think that this is the way to think more forward-looking. So if you can design your capabilities for what is coming versus what is happening or what has happened, that will be the number one advice for me. The other thing is also what I'm also seeing in the world is a convergence. I remember when I joined Deloitte, we had this we had a practice called BIDW, which was BI Data Warehouse, because that's how we were managing that whole landscape. Now what I'm seeing is when AI is coming in, the fabric is extending into the operational world. So whether you manage the data, you need to manage it end to end,
Sure.
both operational world and the analytical world. Whether you manage AI or embed AI, it goes across. So a CDAO, their remit needs to go end to end, and they should be aware of how to look at both of these operational as well as analytical worlds. And then the last thing is, I think the organizations who will have people who can easily work in these setups where how AI could be utilized and how it's embedded. I think grooming your workforce to do that versus trying to say, hey, you should continue to do the integration work, or make them much more, I would say, broader skills, right? Drive some functional thinking into the technical teams, right? So those are the things I would say from a people perspective that a CDA or CDO should focus on. Hopefully that's helpful to somebody.
Yeah, well, Prakul, thank you so much for coming on to Data Forward today, and thank you so much for your partnership all along. We really appreciate Deloitte's support for Excel Data.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching today's episode of Data Forward. We look forward to bringing you many more insightful conversations. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to the Data Forward podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest insider news, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.